wall, there's going to be consequences. All right? The fifth commandment says, thou shalt not steal. Now, where did I get this from? If you're taking property away from the true owner, that's theft. No matter what you do, if you take money from me, whether it be a noble cause or not, and give it to somebody else, the Bible calls that theft. We don't want to see it that way. We don't want to hear it, but you got to deal with the facts. All right? That's the first one. The eighth commandment, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Now, here's what they always tell you. They give people the impression that, oh, when you pay your mortgage off, you're all done, you'll be free and simple, everything's quick. That's lying to you. That's not true. So who's telling you, by the way, you got to keep paying property taxes? I had some people tell me, I got a property tax bill, I paid my mortgage off, and fussing with me and arguing with me about it. I said, why you arguing with me? I know what's happening. But they said, why am I still paying? This is in our country. This is the education level that we have. So this thing is not going to just flip a switch and turn around overnight. There's going to be some work to do with this. So I know my life is going to be dedicated to this. I can tell you that. Now, the 10th commandment, thou shalt not covet. Listen to what you get that one from. Well, if I have the ability to take your property by using a system that's going to never tax you out of your home, I'm coveting your home. That's yours. It's not mine. It doesn't belong to the government. So we're breaking so many commandments, and some of them we don't even know we're breaking. We've gone so far. We're just breaking them off. And then we think we're just going to walk away from this unscathed. Ain't going to happen. All right? Another thing, property taxes serve as a disincentive for maintaining or to improve your home. My house is leaking. Got to put a new roof on it. Guy comes by and says, oh, that makes your house look a lot better. Really? And he says, how much you pay for that? Well, why do you need to know that? Well, I can take your value. Wait a minute, man, I got a leak in my house. I'm fixing it. And now you're telling me you're going to penalize me for that. So why would I even want to fix my house up? You see, the whole thing is just all messed up. All right? And then I like the third party appraisals. Do you realize they're holding your destiny in their hands? Your destiny. They're telling you what your house is worth, what you can sell it for, and what you got to pay taxes on. And then you got to fight to prove them wrong. You see how this is insanity, people. But the abnormal has become normal to us. And now, guess what everybody's banking on right now? They said, Leonard, you know what, you and Brian making all this noise, and what's going to happen, after about 2 or 3 months, they'll shut up and they'll be quiet, we'll go back to life again. I said, it ain't going to happen to me. I'm going to be in your face every day, asking the same question, and challenging you on everything. All right? Now, the onus is on you. Talk about that. You have to prove that you're the owner of the home. This is what it's worth. That costs you money to fight against the government to keep your own house. Okay, y'all follow me now, right? But this is insane. But here's what's going to be funny. We're funding our own demise by choice. This is what's going to drive me crazy. All right? The government has grown to the point now where it's extended what I call it exceeded the private sector's ability to pay for it. This is what I mean about sustainability. So in other words, you can only take so much from me because I only have so much to give you. And then at some point, you're going to break me. And that's when I got to say, I got to get rid of my house. So now, that's not freedom. That's slavery. All right? It's a different form. Let me tell you about how the abnormal has become normal. When you look at how God has laid this out, there's a family, you got the local area, you got the state, and you got the federal. Okay? Now, if I were to think in terms of circles, going from small to big, which one do you think would have the biggest circle?
Family.
Yeah. One would think. Okay. Okay. Let me show you. See the circles getting bigger? See what's happening here? See what's going on? What's happening to the family in America right now? See what I'm saying? Now wait till you see the beautiful circle that the communists put together to keep us in this loop. Brilliant. And if Christians were doing the same thing with the God of this universe, we could flip the switch and turn it around. But we don't understand the word of God, and we have no fear of God. Even when we're reading the Bible, there's no fear of it. Not there. All right, now, let's go a little further. Since the government growth has exceeded the private sector ability to sustain it, here's what my grandma used to say. The chickens have come home to roost. And we're feeling it now. I got people screaming all over the country. Did you get this done? What's happening in Ohio? This is happening in Texas. We're doing this in Florida, all over. And we've been doing it year after year after year, and finally things are coming to a head. All right. This is where I want to tell you about the adoption of communist thinking and not building. All right? Free education for all children in public schools. Sound familiar? Are we doing that?
We call it education.
Yeah, we call it education. Yeah. And we say it's free. Is it free?
No.
Who's paying for it?
Tax dollars.
Okay. Here's the funny part. I go and ask someone, I said, how's your tax bill? Oh, my taxes are going up. Really? I said, have you contested that? No. It's good that the taxes are going up because my home value is high. I said, okay, I got to go back. Let me take a step back. And then they said, we need education. Then I said, well, do you know what you're getting for your money with education? Have you seen some of the test scores? You see what's happening? Population's going down. Money's going up. You got a connection yet? Still don't see it. Okay. Now, here's the funny thing about public education. I was a product of public education. I was a trained socialist. And then, oh, then you weren't a socialist, you. You know why I was? Because let me tell you something. The very things that are in here, I was promoting. We got to tax you. We got to pay for that education. And by the way, when I graduated, guess what? I had to take remedial reading before I could even start going to college. Think about that. This is where we are. Now, abolition of property and land. Sound familiar? Do we own our property? Nope. All right? Rights of inheritance. When you get ready to sell something, who's ready to stand at your door asking for, well, you got to pay this, you got to pay that, you got to. And by the way, if you are dealing with property tax, don't worry about it. We'll put you on a payment plan. Yeah. And then if you can give a $50 a month, don't worry. When you pass away, or you're ready to sell it, we'll help you sell it. It's 15% profit for us. And then what we'll do, we'll just take the money that you owe us from the sale. And if you're left with something, you go live in a high-rise apartment, and then you might be able to survive. Okay? Now, I want you to see this. All this is coming right out of the Communist Manifesto. And I said, what? Didn't even know what it was. And I'm looking at this and I said, my mentality was there because I came through the same system that had already been promoted. And we think communism started like yesterday. That's like what I tell people. My grandma used to say, sin didn't start yesterday, son. I know a lie when I hear it. So what has happened is, again, even during the foundation of the country, there were rats on the Mayflower ground. They were already undermining what we were going to do. So they had to find those pockets of ideas. And the beautiful thing about communism, because communism is a religion, you know that, don't you? It's a religion. So what has happened is, what did they do? We got to get the idea in there. We got to get it out. And get them, you're going to talk to somebody, before you know it, the whole mass is thinking that way. And it becomes the norm. And that's what we are. So in a nutshell, you know why they did this? Because you were funded. Right now, Social Security, Medicare, the whole country's running on scams. And first thing we say, well, I got to get my Social Security check. Well, really? And then we got to keep this up for Social Security, and we got to do this. And so you keep funding a system that inevitably is going to fail. You know why I know it's going to fail? Because what is the first rule in biblical economics? Men have to be restrained. Because you know what? We're wicked to the core. One of the worst lies that I've heard the church ever tell somebody is that you're basically good. That's a lie. You know why? Nobody had to teach me how to lie, cheat, and steal. I knew how to do it. My mama told me, she said, my job is that to teach you what is the difference between right or wrong. You know bad, but I got to teach you what right is. And that's where parenting is very critical. That's not up to the state, that's up to the parents to do that. And we've lost that ability to do it. Now, right now, everybody's got all these different House bills, this and SB that, and I don't know how many, Brian, I think there's over at least 40 or 50 of them in the legislation right now. And they put this committee on the property tax review reform, that's what they call it. It was going on about a year and a half, maybe even 2 years. And Brian and I, we started going down to the big house, and we doing testimonies in House Ways and Means Committee and talking to everybody about what's going on. And what was really interesting is that they actually had our names in there. I was like, oh yeah, I'm excited about that. Okay. Well, anyway, they introduced all these bills. Now, a whole bunch of stuff is out there because they said we got to give immediate relief. I would say, yeah, that's fine, but I still want to own my house. I don't care about immediate relief. I want my house. They got all this current activity, but what we found interesting, they had one in there, it was HB 263. It was called the 70 under 70 plan. That's been changed or modified a little bit. They dropped it down. But you know what it is? It's still like kissing your little sister. When my mom used to make me kiss my sister, I don't want to kiss her. Mama, why you make me? And especially, when you're mad at her, and then you go kiss your sister. Y'all know what I'm talking about. But anyway, when you start looking at this, they had another one, HB 187. And it goes on and on. And I can't keep up with this, right? When you come to me, it has to be clear and concise. I got to understand it. I got to be able to convey it to my neighbor. Because one thing I found out about politicians, and I learned this the hard way, if they can't convince you, they will confuse you. That's why I said when we do an amendment, I want to make sure it's clear and concise because I want to be able to sell it to you. I want you to be able to sell it to the next person. That's what you call clear and concise. Now, they had a report, 836 pages, and nothing earth-shattering or significant about it. And here's what they came up with. Kicking the can down the road a bit. All this 836 pages. I got through about 20 of them, and I said, for what? And somebody read it and said, guess what? I saw Brian's name in there, and I saw Linda's name in there. I was like, well, I guess that's good. But we're still kicking the can down the road. All right? If people want immediate relief, you cannot let off the gas. You got to call, you got to keep doing, you got to keep, because I can tell you right now, if you let off the gas, guess what's going to happen? They'll go into another session, introduce all the bills, and you'll be back to square one again. So you have to keep your pressure on. Now, when I start talking about immediate relief, everybody comes to me and say, well, honey, Why can't you do this? Why can't you do this? I mean, wait a minute. You can call just like I can. And the more the merrier. I don't want it to be just one person. Now, my brain is thinking, I'm done playing around. It's time to say enough is enough. So now, we start talking about another reality. And this is where people freak out. You could eliminate the property tax? Are you crazy? People freak out when you say, you can't do that. We gotta have school. You gotta have this. So, a good friend of mine in Michigan told me, she said, the next time somebody asks you that question, ask them, is it more important to have a book in the library or to lose your house? That's what you got to start asking. Just deal with some realistic questions. And I said, yeah, that's a good point. Now, this is what my mama told me a long time ago. If you're digging a hole, and you don't want the hole to get any deeper, she said, put the shovel down, son. So you know how you get caught in a lie, and you keep trying to lie about it, and then your mom and daddy know about it? Yeah. And then she said, just put the shovel down, son. Stop it right there. She said, it would be much easier if you just stop doing what you're doing. That's what we got to do. We got to stop this nonsense. Now, going forward. Now, why do I say long-term path forward? I want you to understand something. From what I told you about our uneducated society, this is a lot of work. You're not going to flip the switch and just make it happen. This is going to be a lifetime cycle. Now, people say, well, Leonard, we won't get it done in this amount of time. I'm not worried about the time. I told you I'm doing this for the glory of God, not for me. God's going to control the outcome. But if I sit back and do nothing, it's sort of like he's giving me the keys to the kingdom when we talk about the whole dominion concept. If he gives me the keys to the kingdom, at some point I got to go and unlock the door, right? I don't know what's so hard about this. But now, I got a whole bunch of people on the other side of that door that don't have a clue what's going on. So now, I told Brian, we got to go on a mission here. And my buddy in Michigan, she's going around in all the different counties. Just education. And she's been at, guess how long she's been at this? Almost 4 years now. That's dedication. And every time I talk to her, she said, Linda, you know every time you start to have a low point, you got to call me because you're not quitting. She said, I won't let you quit. So anytime I think I'm going to call her and get a quick fix, it's a 30-minute lecture or discussion. You can't be depressed. You don't have time to do this. You get back on that street and you start rolling. And she gives me my little pep talk and I'm back off again. All right. Now, I want to drive true ownership. I don't want the government talking about your house. It's yours. It's that simple. I have a transaction with you. I go by your house. You sell it, boom, in the store. Government doesn't even know about that. That's ours. You sell it, I buy it in the store. All right? The reason why this is a beautiful thing is because it indicates family stability and it attracts businesses. Because when businesses come in and say, oh, this is a very stable community. So I'm going to probably find some good workers because they're going to stay here for a long time. If they know you're renting, you know how young people just jump from job to job. There's no time like it. I tell somebody I've been on a job for 34 years, they say, man, what happened to you? I enjoy what I was doing. Because God gave me a job for me to take care of my family. So it wasn't just for me, I was taking care of my family with that job. Now, we talk about promoting limited government. All I have to do is ask this one question. People get confused. I said, what is the role of government? Another pause. And they give me all this stuff. Well, we got to educate the children. I said, show it to me in scripture. We have to do this, show it to me in scripture. No dice. Can't come up with it. Because it's very limited. That circle should be the smallest of all the circles. But we've lost that concept. All right? Now, let's talk about economic growth and promoting generational wealth. Let's say that all that monster of a system is gone. All these appraisers coming into your house, knocking on your door, say, oh, we got to do this, you got to do this. That whole system is gone. You know how much money that is? Now everybody said, well, Leonard, you're going to put people out of a job. Well, that's why we need economic growth. Instead of your governor trying to kill the operation, he needs to try to build it up. And I don't know how y'all messed Ohio up, because when I was in Georgia, Ohio used to be known as the working man's state. And everybody said, Leonard, you want to go get a job, engineering, whatever you want to do, go to Ohio. And now I look back and I said, what did they do to this state? It's been ruined. I mean, I could walk down the street, mom and pop, metal fabrication shops, I can go in. But now, just dried up. And I don't know what happened when he went through that COVID nonsense. Oh, he just lost his mind, but that's just me. Anyway. Okay, the ideal future state, we want to have taxes based on the need. One thing that Brian has uncovered when I started hanging out with him, he said, Leonard, there's no voice for the taxpayer. There's just no accountability anywhere. Rubber stamping. Budget comes in, stamp it. And I'm thinking, well, who's looking at the budget? Well, that's not our role. We can't fight them. We just have to approve what they give us. And by the way, they don't even give them all the information. Just stamp it. Okay? So now we can get rid of all that nonsense, all this systems here, and now you start to drive people to hold them accountable for something. Now it's a different ball game. All right? We got to streamline some of the services. And what do I mean by that? There are some counties that are wealthier than others. Now, I said the poor is going to be among us, right? But you know that little commandment where it says, thou shalt love thy neighbor? It didn't tell the government to do that, it told us to do that. So now if we recognize that people are in need, guess what we do? We come to the aid of them. All right? Not the government telling us to do it, because now we have the money to do it, and now we have the freedom to go and spend, we can give, and we can do what we want to do. But you can't do that if I keep extracting money from it. All right? No tax should be tied to someone's home. End of story. That has to stop. God has put certain provisions on how to tax people. Now, I can tell you right now, I don't know how many taxes. We probably pay taxes on everything. I put my hands on it. So we've gotten so far. Did you know that when you go eat buy local bread, you're not getting taxes are associated with that? You're talking 17, 18 taxes just for that. And they said, well, if you get rid of property tax, what are you going to replace it with? And you know what I always ask them? When have you ever known in history that the government has not found a way to tax you? They'll find a way. So what we want to do is say, let's look at some realistic alternatives here to help the economy grow and help families out so that families can become stronger, they can grow, they want to have children, and we make it easier for them to manage and live in an environment where they can prosper. But you got to give them some freedom to do that. And the other thing is, people don't like this. They say, well, Leonard, if a person makes $30,000 a year and the other person makes $100,000 a year, that guy should pay more. I said, wait a minute. Now, why are you going to punish him because he's making money? And by the way, when I got my first job, I wasn't working for a broke man. I was working for people that had money. So I don't want to hurt him. Leave the man alone. So the reason why God put the flat tax in there was because we all have skin in the game. And by the way, it should never exceed 10%. You know why? There you go. Because once you start competing with the church, then the government starts to take that role. Do you know that the government is taking over just about every role that the church used to perform? Gone. So y'all feel me, right? You give me a resume. Right? There you go. All right. Here's another good example. How about we pay taxes for the stuff we're using? Now, here's why I say this. You got these businesses out there paying property taxes. And she told me this in Michigan. She said, Leonard, why am I paying for books in the library? So I'm running a business here. I need police and fire and stuff like that. But why don't I need to pay for playgrounds and stuff? And she told me how much she was paying in taxes. She said, I pay almost $30,000. That's a small business. And I thought they were killing people in Ohio, but she said, no money. She said, trust me, Governor Whitmer, or what they call Governor Whitmer, or whatever. They said she's ruining this state. So it's not just here. I mean, they're just wrecking the whole nation. And it's just going rampant. Now, how do we get there? We were working on a proposal. This is kind of funny. And I know it may not be funny for the people that were in the meeting, but for me it was, because I like to have discussions about how to do things, right? But we were talking about the amendment process. I talked to Michigan, talked to Texas, and she told me, you got to be careful because the states are different, okay? So we get together, and in my mind, we're going to come up with the amendment, okay? So we started having some discussions, and I'm looking at what we came up with, and then my natural engineering mind said, wait a minute, something's making no sense here. Because the first thing I always ask myself, can I sell it to somebody else? And if I can't do that, I'm not going to buy into it. So now, that's healthy discussion. There's nothing wrong with that. But what I want us to do, go back to the drawing table and think about what needs to go in there. And that's why I said we're going to contact David Yost, Secretary of State, who else we need to contact, and find out exactly what needs to go in there. Because what I don't want them to do is to start playing around with the wording and then confuse everybody, because they don't want it to happen. So we got some work to do. And by the way, I do have connections with the other states, and it's growing. They've been very helpful. They said, we don't want you to make the same mistakes that we did. So learn from us. And if you want to come visit our state, we'll come to you. You let us know, because this is just that important for everybody to be on the same page. So I'm thankful for that. It has to be citizen-led, and you know why? Because the legislature ain't going to happen. I hate to tell you that. We go down there, Brian and I have been in the meetings, everybody's on the phone, we're talking, in and out the door, we're still talking, they're not there. Check box, they came in, they spoke, done, go home, we got to drive back 2 hours. That's wasted. Do it again, same thing. On the phone, talking, act like they're paying attention to you, they're not. All right? So if we don't do it, I'm going to comfortably tell you, nothing's going to happen. We have to start remembering that we have to start taking charge of the situation and make it happen. So if we don't do it, shame on us. Now, here's what we're looking for on our path forward. I call it out-of-the-box thinking. Because what has happened is, when I said the abnormal has become normal, we need people to start asking questions. Why do we do it this way? Can we do it differently? What are the other alternatives? This is the type of thinking we need in order to solidify something clear and concise for everybody to communicate. So that's where we're going. My mission, along with whoever else wants to ride with me, I want to hit every county. And I want to just keep educating, and build a groundswell. So when we have that petition ready in hand, we can say, hey, here we go, let's start distributing. Like that. Snap of the finger, we can make it happen. But this is going to take some time. I want to hit every county, one by one. And as I'm doing this, I'm developing contacts, educating people, and what we're doing is we're getting a mass of people that we can get on the same page. You're not going to get everybody on the same page, because some people say, well, I got mine, that's your problem. But they're going to be in the same boat that we are when the whole thing collapses. So that logic doesn't hold. All right, I'm going to bring this to closure, because I know I got John now. I know I've gone a little too long. John probably has more of the nuts and bolts type of things, and that's good also. That's very good information. But what I'm trying to do is, from a philosophical standpoint, to get people to understand what we're up against. And we need people that want to get engaged and want to make a difference. I'm learning as I'm going through this process. I'm learning how things work within our government. And let me tell you something, it is a maze and it is a mess. Because every time you try to figure something out, there's a roadblock here, this guy does this guy does this. You think the federal government is bad, the local is just as bad. But we are for federal, but the local, and people who are voting don't know what they're voting for. See, this is where our education needs to change significantly. All right. Brian Massey has a group, Lobbyists for Citizens, and he is truly a citizen representative. And my group is basically Stop Property Taxes, gmail.com. That's how you can reach us. And I'm Citizens Against Property Taxes. And people panic when I say that. Well, then you got to pay taxes. I didn't say I wasn't going to pay taxes. All I'm saying is take it away from my house. It ain't that complicated. All right? And with that being said, I just want to say thank you for your time. I want to try to keep it as short as possible. I know the rain is raining. I get excited about the gospel. I want to bring John up, let him do some talking. And then afterwards, if we have any questions and stuff like that, I can kind of give you a little more detail about where we're going and what we need as far as your help. So, anyway, thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Well, I guess, how do we get to this point where they penalize us for owning our homes and we don't own them anymore because the government owns them? Pretty much, you got to follow the money, okay? I know personally, my school, my property taxes went up $4,000. It went from $6,000 to $10,000 overnight. And what they did is they did it by mass appraisal method. And that's another thing I'll get into. But basically, the problem is that 63% of my taxes go to the Willoughby-East Lake School District. And the problem with that is I just saw the house of the state hospital. They were running some the committee meetings, and they ran. This is for general. Pretty much the cost to, or the student growth in student was 8% over the last 20 years, from 2020 to 2020. The growth in principal, assistants, teachers, and staff, 37%. And then administrative staff went up 88%. And in Willoughby-East Lake School District, 80% of their budget is people. It's administrative, teachers, but mostly it's the administration and the support staff. They've got probably more support staff than anyone else. They've got over 1,000 employees, and over 50% of them are support staff. I think 30% are just teachers. The teachers are underpaid, and they have only 15 kids in the class, and they say, well, that's the smaller classes, the kids will learn better. Well, the proficiencies are going down dramatically. That's another chart they showed, was the spending has gone up tremendously. I'm sorry I wish I could add this, but I just printed this out yesterday. But the spending has gone out of control. It's actually increased more than inflation. And this reading and math is plummeting. I know Willoughby-East Lake Schools, one school, Jefferson, third grade, proficiency is 45, but the passing is 100%. So they're passing all the kids. That's a disservice to the kids. I mean, the most important subject, the most important is reading. And they can't get them out of third grade reading. And the problem is once they're in third grade, if they can't read at third grade level, they get to fourth grade, it's going to hurt every subject, as you know. Now, every subject can be caught up on, but reading. So then again, following the money. So you've got all that money going there, and then what they've done is now, back in 77, or 76, they filed House Bill 920. That was because as the houses were inflating, the property tax was getting out of control. So they were raising, so they put a limit on it. But at the same time, they also raised the floor from 10 mils to 20 mils, which now gave the schools an extra 10 mils to play with. Actually, 15 mils because 5 of it's designated to the county, some of it goes to the library, to the parks, and so forth. So they divvy it up among the municipalities. But either way, so what they did though is then what they did is they raised it up to the floor, but now the inside millage, in order to get them at the 20 mil floor, they had to reduce down the outside millage down to 20 mil so that they can qualify and get that increase. So what they did is they took the outside millage because they reduced that factor down and got to the 20 mils. Now, once they're at that level, they reach it. Once they reach it, they're there. Now, every time there's a valuation increase, like we just had at the sexennial, the problem is now the property taxes are going to go up for that.
So can you touch on the difference between inside and outside millage, please?
Yeah, outside millage is basically, if we vote for like 20 mils on outside millage, as the property values go up, they still only collect 20 mils. They can't collect any more. But the inside millage, if the property values go up 10%, then also they would receive 10% more, say, roughly, I'm just using the rough numbers, but they would also increase in their revenue coming in on the inside millage. Well, they capped that inside millage to 20 mils. But Willoughby Slade School has 47 mils. So they have 20 inside and 27 outside. Now that 27 will get adjusted down. So as the values go up, that'll come down to say 25. But the 20 stays at 20, and then those get valued up at 22 then. So again, so they'll see an increase in value. So, and then the school district, the board, we think, well, the school board, they should have control over this. Well, they're being lied to in this also. And they have no idea even what the 20 mil floor is or anything about finances. So, in the meantime, as they're voting, and they even think, well, you mean to tell me that the outside millage that we voted for, that we passed, we don't get an increase in that? We only get that much money? And they feel like they're being cheated because they're not getting an increase on anything over the 20 mils. So, and the problem we have, like I said, it's their spending. They run it like government. Government, as you know, are just a lot of people. We see that now going on with Doge. We see that what happened with Twitter, eliminate all the people, all the personnel, the non-essential people. Well, that's what we have in school, a lot of non-essential people. And 70% of their revenue comes from our property taxes. And of that, they say, well, local control, you guys have say in what can control the school. As we all know, we go to school board meetings, we have 3 minutes, cut us off mid-sentence, and they never answer a question. And so, I mean, it's just, and it's an ongoing problem. And then we're fighting with the unions, against HR, you have all these other issues, and again, they're getting all their salaries, their benefits, tremendous benefits, and also pensions. So, and this is all that coming out of our pockets. So when we vote for these levies, then they threaten us. They say, well, the biggest problem we have is that we voluntarily vote for these levies. No, we get threatened and into voting for the levies because, again, if we don't vote for them, they're going to take away the sports, so they're going to take away the, all the other busing and so forth. But again, so we vote for these voluntarily, though, after they threaten us to do it, but then they penalize us because they put it on our taxes, on our property to collect, and if we don't pay in 3 years, we lose our property. And again, that's not right to be penalized like that. So the only way to fix the problem is pretty much we have to eliminate the collection of the school funding on the property taxes, because that's where we're getting penalized. And as far as with the other services, my daughter lives in Chesterland here, and I got a copy of her tax bill. And pretty much half of her money is going to the schools. So out of the tax bill, so she's got $4,500 going to the school out of the $9,000. And then out of that, $1,200 goes to the township, which is about 28%. And then she's got other services. Metzenbaum Center, 5.8% comes from the Metzenbaum Center. So again, there's other areas that need to be funded. Again, part of it covers the police, the fire, EMS, which are very essential services. I don't think anyone has a problem paying property taxes on those essential services. And where we have a problem is where we get penalized if we don't pay, or they take away our house. I mean, I can understand penalty for not paying, but the threat of them arbitrarily being able to take our house away, that's just, it's unconstitutional, it's morally wrong. And there's been cases where, again, it's been ruled unconstitutional that to put the collection of our school funding on property taxes. But again, the schools, the state are ignoring those rulings, and pretty much they're leaving it as is. Now, there's a lot of House bills out there, a lot of them that are to basically make some changes to the tax, which they're all pretty good, but the problem is there's all, they call it carve-outs. So they only fit one group of people or benefit one group of people. Well, that's one of the problems with school funding is that if you give the seniors, say, a break and where they don't have to pay for any of the school funding or break on the taxes, then the other residents in the community have to make up that money because of the way they divide it up, because they have to get their money no matter what. And that's where, again, it's just an unfair system. So unless the state can replace it, but then a lot of people will say, well, we have to have all these teachers, we have to have all these things and administrators because the state mandates it. The state mandates all these things. And they say, we're going to lose state funding. Well, 20% of the funding comes from the state. But that's still, where does the state get the money? It's our money. I mean, they still collect it from our form of taxes, which comes from us ultimately. So when you think about it, the state, it's all our money they're playing with. They're dictating 100% what goes on. So our plan is basically to eliminate the funding. And again, they're not going to need as much as they're collecting now if they do total school finance reform for the school. We need a complete overhaul of the schools. And the problem is that the only way to fix it is the state mandates it, because we as people can't do it because we have to fight against the union. The only one that can fight against the union would be the state if they made a law or mandated it through an addendum to the Constitution that they had to stop the funding and collect the tax. So this is another thing that I think we have to look at. But the major thing I'm looking at doing now is we're looking at putting together an amendment to eliminate the funding of property, or eliminate property taxes altogether. Now, again, if we were to eliminate the funding mainly on the school part, that would be a big help. And then we also have the part of the others. But like I said, those are for services that we need. So we have to kind of come to some kind of agreement, or halfway at least on that. But I think overall, eliminating the school funding, that would eliminate 50%, or at least 50 to 60% of a person's property tax. So we cut that, pretty much in half right off the top. And that would give everyone instant relief. And then they can take that money, and then we don't need school vouchers because now, if people aren't funding their schools through their property tax, they can take that money and go to the school of their choice. And then also, friends, family can also take the money they save and sponsor those kids. So there'll always be other alternatives. And a lot of these state schools then, or public schools, will have to consolidate and pretty much shut down, which would be a good thing because then we can have other private schools open up where people where they'll be running more efficiently. And again, the way the people want them to run, and they'll educate the kids the way they need to be educated. Because right now, like I said, everything they're doing is just not working. So that's something we're going to have to look at. Now, when they're getting into the mass appraisal now, that's another thing. What they're doing is, because there's only a 20 mil floor, it happened at Willoughby Eastlake School. Their budget in May, they put together a budget where they did some calculations. And they said, if the valuations go up 17.5%, they're only going to bring in $4.5 million, which means if their 5-year forecast, they'll have 30 days cash. That's days cash, whereas reserved, okay? Where if the funding stops, they'll be able to operate for 30 days. So then they said, they talked to the board, and they said, well, how many days cushion would you feel comfortable with? And then they ran another scenario, well, if the valuations go up 28.5%, we'll have 52 days cash. So that'll give them almost 2 months. So what ended up happening is, and again, if you look at their budget, their spending this year was $115 million. In 5 years, it goes up to $130 million. So the spending goes up, but then again, they're looking at how much do we have coming in and how many days can we operate with this much money coming in. So they're reversing it. So then what they do is they have to submit that to the auditor, whatever their appropriations are, in September. Well, in September, they also then put together a cash policy where they said that the minimum cash reserve they can have after 5 years, in year 5, is 60 days, which is 8 days shy of the 52-day budget, or 50 days cash reserve they had on their projection if the valuations go up 28.5%. Well, just so coincidentally, now when the auditor gets these, everything, when we turn in, even the municipalities have to turn in our budget appropriations to the auditor. And it goes to the Budget Commission. The Budget Commission basically just rubber stamps them. They go in there, they get their, whatever it is, and they just stamp it. Well, Willoughby Eastlake School submitted their budget, And what they needed, they also knew that their resolution that says we need to have this much cash. Well, it's up to the auditor by state law to make sure that the school is funded for that 5-year period, which means now they have to do the value, make sure the valuations come in more than 28.5%. Well, coincidentally, it came in at 29.5%. So basically, Willoughby Eastlake School is going to get cut. And again, they're following the law. The laws are all written specifically. And we think that HB 920 was there to help us. No. Everything that they do is to help fund the schools and give them more money. And what they're doing is with these massive appraisal methods, and that's why these valuations came up so high. What they do is it's called, they take a house that is sold, even if it's not a comparable, and they'll subtract the basic building costs off of that to get a residual land value. And that's what they did this valuation in Lake County. They increased everyone's land value because now when we go to get a private appraisal to contest it, our private appraisal doesn't look at separate the land from the house. And what they're doing is they raise it up. For example, my house, my land is worth was valued at $175,000 last year. Now that's because I live on the lake, across the street from me, the land value is $50,000. So it makes sense, $125,000 more on the lake. But now, this year it went up from $175,000 to $370,000. How did they justify that? Well, they took a house that sold 5 houses down, that was an emotional buy, sold for more money than it was worth. On top of it, he's Airbnb-ing it, so he's running a business out of it. He's not living in it either. Well, they took that house that sold, and they took the basic building costs off of that and ended up with a residual value of the land, which was very, very high, and then raised everyone's land value along the lake accordingly. Everyone's value went up about 68% average along the lake. My neighbor went up 112%. I mean, his taxes went up to $15,000, okay, from $8,000. It's insane. And again, because he has a double lot, and they just socked him on the lot, on the value. And this is what they're doing to everyone. What they're doing is they're raising the house a little bit, and then raising the value of the land up. Now, this year, what happened was they needed, again, normally on the sex annual has been averaging about 15% increase. Well, it just so happened that this year it went up 30%. Why? Because again, when you do reverse engineering, and you need to get these school districts and these municipalities this much funding and covered, basically that's what they do, and that's how they raise the values up in all the different neighborhoods. And it's just one of those things that we're opening and discovering now what they're doing. And when I go to their website, Vision Software Solutions website, they actually have training videos on how they're doing this. So it's amazing in how they're calculating and reverse engineering all this and arriving at their numbers. So this is something, again, that we have to look at, and we're looking at possibly filing a class action lawsuit against this entire appraisal method, because again, we can't contest, we can't fight it. We're fighting against a methodology that is not the same as what we would go in at. We go in there, if we go in there also with, say your house needs repairs. You say, well, I need a new roof, and I need new windows, and I need, a new kitchen, or whatever. You take and you put all these estimates. Well, they're not going to give you, first of all, dollar for dollar. What they'll do is they'll just give you a little token and give you some crumbs back, is all they do. And this is what they'll do. And this is specifically made, and then how they get out of it is that they say, well, if your house were to go on the market, this is what it would probably sell for. Well, again, we don't know. It's a hypothetical. And most of us here, we don't want to sell our homes. It's our homes. We want to live in it, and hopefully, till we don't live anymore. So it's one of those things that, again, that should be something. I worked my whole life. I bought my house. I got it for a good price because, again, it needed foundation work. I had to replace the entire base of the wall. I had to put new sewers in, waterproofing, new HVAC. I had to put a new roof. I did windows, everything. Now, they're going to take all that money I put in here. Now they're going to penalize me, okay, on unrealized gains. They go, well, your house is worth more if you sell it. Yeah, but I'm not going to sell it. Okay, and I'm being penalized on unrealized gains. And again, I went with this with a house I had in Mayfield Village. I bought it, and I actually built it 30 years ago, and at that time my taxes were $2,000. And in 20 years it went all the way up to $13,000. It was out of control. And I kept telling them it's not worth it. And when I sold it, of course, it didn't sell for what they had been appraised for, but at that time it was too late. And then I tried to contest it. And again, they'll only take a little bit off. And the other problem is when we go to contesting, it depends on how much you're contesting. If you're contesting over a certain amount, the school board will have an attorney come in and defend the tax board on those valuations. So, you know, it's a whole rigged system, and I guess we have to look at it, it's the schools. The problem is the schools. That's where our problem is, and it's in administration, it's in people. They just have way too many people, and that's where we have to, you know, they have to cut the spending in that respect, so. All right, I'll just finish up with that. Any questions? Yes.
Well, thinking back about House Bill 920 and how the Supreme Court was saying it was unconstitutional how many times? And this is over a period of like 15, 20 years. So how, if you're saying that the schools benefit from the House Bill 920 with the 20-mil floor, how is this still feasible for something that was unconstitutional to still be in existence as a model going for today's tax collector?
We've been told by John Hudson, the commissioner, he said to us that yes, it was unconstitutional, but not for the reasons that we think. It was because of the way the money was collected and distributed, you know, throughout the state. That's what he said was unconstitutional. And we have asked representatives about that, and they said, we've taken care of that. But there's an important thing that you need to know. And that is, when we talk to legislators and to county auditors, they're telling us if seniors cannot afford their homes, they should sell their homes and move into an apartment. That is the mindset of our legislators. I heard that firsthand. Now, another important statistic. Looking at the CUP reports. The CUP reports, what we found from the CUP reports. The CUP reports is you go online, and this is where they accumulate massive amounts of data of all 600 plus school districts in Ohio. You can find it online, and they've got it from year after year. A lot of some very good information, you know, on there. The issue that I'm finding, though, is that, how do you say this? They don't care about you. They don't care about you. On that CUP report, we found out that all of the local property taxes for all 600 plus school districts, about $11 billion. So the three of us said, well, what would happen if we eliminated the property tax and replaced it with a sales tax? What would it take? And our calculations show that we need about a 4.5% Ohio sales tax on top of the tax that we already have. Would you be okay with that? Would that be acceptable to people at the state level? That's one way of doing it. But we'd have to get, a buy-in from all of the legislators. But keep in mind, they are looking at the money that the unions are paying them for their election campaign funds. Ron Young, who is used to be a state representative in Lake County, he's also a commissioner. On his last day as a commissioner, he asked me to take my cameras and record him. Here's what he said. He must have had a come to Jesus moment. He said that the two top priorities of government is to protect itself and to grow. The two top priorities of any elected official is to protect themselves and make sure they get reelected. No mention of what is in the best interest of the taxpayers. I've come to the realization
that this representative democracy or government we got is nothing but an illusion. And unless we speak out, nothing will change. They have to fear us. Again, they want to get reelected. But what I find with Jimmy Callender, well, he's in his last term. He won't even take calls. So when you get a Republican that says, we're a Republican, we're for the people, well, you got to start proving it to us. So I won't take any more time. Do we have any questions? Yes, sir.
Just a basic question. When did it start? The whole property tax.
Yes, that's a good question. When the state started, that's when they had a property tax. I assume it was for the building of roads and that sort of thing. I'm not sure when the school tax, went in, but it has. In Lake County, I did a lot of research on Lake County government, and what we found, I did a comparison from 2015 to 2025. In 10 years, it's 33%. The growth of government in Lake County has gone up 33%. We are now spending $508 million a year in property taxes. We have 54, I believe it's 54 taxing authorities. In my taxing district, I pay 34 different tax levies. It is too complex. Now, I have to tell you, we've talked to Brian Stewart, who's a rep down in Columbus. We talked to Jennifer Gross. She was on our podcast. Nice lady. But when we talked about, well, we had a Save Our Seniors campaign. How about a carve out for seniors when you hit 65 and more property tax? Sorry, we can't have carve outs. They don't believe in carve outs. So they're not really interested in the seniors, right? So when I say that to them, oh, they push back. Yeah, we are. We're for the seniors. Well, you got to start proving it to them.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a question that's kind of related, so I just keep thinking in my head, like all of us older people, or people, you're in a room of like able to speak common sense.
Yes.
But like the young people, even if their taxes are, they're not thinking like ahead or whatever, they're just like, oh, our football program, oh, I want
100%.
the flag, proud parent of the West Java.
100%. I got a story like that. I was
So
telling,
I'm just like,
I was telling a friend of mine.
Say, like,
Yeah.
It's camouflage in a little thing called escrow.
Yes,
No,
100%.
so, we're proud of our schools, we're proud of our teachers, we're proud of our lacrosse team and our whatever.
Yeah, you gotta have good schools so that the property
And you're like,
values.
what, and millions of dollars?
What this gentleman said was correct, though. We found in Lake County, we asked the treasurer, why don't you send the property tax bill to every homeowner? And he said, well, we don't do that. I said, well, how much? He said, 40% of the people have a mortgage.
Yeah.
So we send it to the mortgage company. I said, well, why don't you send it to the homeowner? Well, no, that would cost too much. And then Galloway, the auditor, said to me, well, Brian, you were complaining when there was overpaid property taxes. Yeah, I was complaining there was overpaid property taxes because the commissioners held on to it. It was $5 million. They held on to it for 30 years. And then when I said, well, why don't you give it back to the taxpayer? And this was Republican, Democrats for 30 years. And they said, well, we don't have enough people to figure it out. So, I'm saying, yes, ma'am.
But under education program, how do we talk to those people? Because like, you can get this group, everybody's nodding their heads and getting up there.
Well, I'll tell you another problem. I'll tell you another problem that I experienced. I was telling my friends of 30 plus years, guys my age, ancient, okay? Ancient. After 10 minutes, he's playing on his phone. And he says to me, geez, the Browns are down by 10 at halftime.
Oh,
That, ladies and gentlemen, is symptomatic. I'm saying, where are the men standing up?
no. Come on.
Where are the men standing up? And why are they so worried about things that are so irrelevant?
Yes, sir. How many of you have ever seen this? Hierarchy of the U.S. Constitution. Who's in charge? We the people.
Yeah.
We the people.
Yes.
John? You know what enumeration is?
What?
If we did not enumerate something in this Constitution, it's absolutely unlawful.
It's got to be spelled out.
It's listed. If it's not listed, it's unlawful. How do we fix this? Tactical civics is teaching people, I'm learning with them. I'm no expert on all this stuff. But what tactical civics is doing is teaching us our lawful grand jury, and the word that a lot of people don't like, but if you actually read the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary. The only place in the Constitution they use that word for a free state, the right to bear arms shall not be infringed. We need lawful, constitutional grand jury, and we shut down all. The lawful grand jury is supposed to be able to look at anything of public concern. That's the way it's supposed to work in America. I cannot encourage you enough to understand this. I'm doing another tactical civics intro meeting. Sorry, my voice is going on here. On 21st of this month at Ransom Sage Farm. When we actually enforce our law again, all this stuff, every bit of it. Because we the people at the county level are in charge. When we start acting like the collective sovereign, which is who we are, okay, here's the cool thing. I live in Alaska, and I spend the winters here. And Alaska has about 70 people in tactical civics. When I came here, there was me. Ohio now is number 12 in the country with people involved in tactical civics. People are starting to wake up. When I came here, there were 16 states we were in, and I forgot. No, wait, 7 states and 16 counties. We're in 1,700 almost counties. We got 8,500 people. We will take America back. Especially, Trump is doing some good stuff. Right? And with Elon and them. I don't know how constitutional it is. I'm not a constitutional scholar by any means. My daughter went to LCL College. And I was a constitutional to Patriot Academy for 20 years. I played videos and told people how great the Constitution was, but I never actually sat down, looked at this, and read the Constitution like me and 10 other guys that have some integrity and want to end well. I don't want to hear, well, you're done. I want to hear, well done. That is what runs my whole world. Okay, that is the most important thought.
Yeah, the education process is always ongoing. Because believe it or not, we have come across people that cannot associate going to the ballot box and voting for a levy that means that their property taxes are going to increase. I kid you not.
Yeah, they're not educated. They don't want to get educated.
Yes.
Politics is the enemy.
How many people know of people or heard people say they love tax season? Oh, but don't laugh, you do. A lot of people file zeros on their going forward. And they think they're winning the lottery.
There's one thing that really baffles me, and it doesn't baffle me, but this is what I'm trying to tell you. I want you to listen to this very carefully. I know we talk about tactical civics and You know, I've been a member of JDS. That information is out there. But remember one thing, when you have an ungodly society,
That's right.
even that Constitution has to be read in light of Scripture.
Exactly.
So if you don't do that, we can sit there and play games all we want. Because I'm telling you, when I say the chicken's going to come home to roost, let me tell you what's happening right now. People don't realize that this is why not owning your home leaves you very vulnerable. Our country is broke. We're running on a fiat system. All the states' budget is comprised about maybe 60, I'd say maybe 50 to 60% of our money coming from that. That's fiat money. We have sucked the life out of all the local stuff. All right? Now, I have never known one country in the history of the world that has printed itself into prosperity. Maybe somebody can show me one, but I haven't seen it. Printed itself into prosperity. Now, don't get me wrong. I know, I'm glad that Trump is in office, okay? But now, the feds know they can't get out of this. They know we're done. So guess what they're playing around with now? Crypto.
Yes. Come on. Come on.
You see? And at the same time, when you don't own anything, you're vulnerable to the government on anything. That includes your home. So, I'm telling you this. When I say we have no fear of God, what I mean is that we have the Word of God in front of us, but it doesn't register because we don't know it. There you go.
They don't walk it out.
That is our problem.
And our nation is not built on God.
Yes.
It's built on man's way. It's not built on God.
That's what I'm talking about. There you go.
Then things will start to, just like he's given us a reprieve right now by putting Trump in, and he answered our prayers, but the church has got to wake up.
Yes.
And do what they're supposed to do.
So you know where I'm going.
Yes, I do.
I can say amen to that. I can end it right here because she nailed it.
Yes.
So.
You know what, take any more time, but we want to answer your questions.
What do you estimate the impact will be if you can get rid of the federal Department of Education?
That's a good question. We think there's going to be a big ripple through the state, and that's why we're thinking now loudly.
We can't hear you.
That's a great question. We've asked ourselves, what kind of ripple effect will the closing of the Department of Education have throughout the country? And I think it's going to have a pretty significant, impact at the state level. It's going to have to change, I think, their way of thinking. And we're hoping maybe that's how we can use this time to change the financing model for the schools, so that it's not zeroed in on property taxes. But we're going to have to watch that very carefully. It's a great question. I don't have the answer, but I know it will have an effect.
That a lot of the administration that the schools have is to meet federal mandated requirements. So if there's no department making those requirements, then you wouldn't need all that loaded administrative, and then the cost will perhaps come down in the state.
I think a lot of that too is also at the state level. I did find out in our Riverside School District, I found out that we're hiring people just to make sure that we can keep track of the statistics that the state wants. And they're, I think, in my opinion, needless statistics. But that's what happens with an unfunded mandate. Then the school said, well, we've got to go out and hire somebody, therefore we've got to increase the budget for that. It's going to be a challenge.
Is there a state that does this well, or some place that has pieces of this that uses template, or?
Not that I'm aware. Do you know of any?
One thing we have to also recognize is this. The public education system is going to collapse like a cheap suit. And let me tell you what. This country has aborted over 75 million babies.
More than that.
And that's what we know of.
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
It's more than that. The blood is crying out for the young.
So when you deplete a population like that,
yes,
to try to turn that back on, to come up to where you need for generational transfer of wealth and to build a society, you just killed it. Now, they're thinking, well, you got to remember, we can bring all the outsiders in and put them in the schools, but they're not high dollars. So now, you're putting more and more burden on the system, and the system can't take it. See, I don't think we understand the gravity of the situation that we're in. So until we, I like the way you put it, until we hit rock bottom, I think we might understand something going on.
Yeah. It's also from the societal standpoint, you need 2.1 children, per family to maintain a society. At 1.6, it becomes very questionable whether or not you can replace the society, and at 1.3, you can't get it back, and your society starts collapsing. And so what the Democrats have done is try to replace all of that, with the rest of the world. But we are in serious trouble in a lot of areas, and unless we get back to a sense of morality and not centered society. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's why Russia is actually paying families incentives to have children, because they get multiple kids of those women. And they say it's a worldwide problem.
Oh, yes.
That we have aborted so many children. Our world is at this danger because of that society.
Right. Because they were saying we're overpopulated and we're going to strip the earth. Yeah.
That's how they started with the USAID, was for population control. That was their main.
Isn't that a nightmare? I hope Trump exposes all of them. Gitmo may not be big.
All that money, and the Congress not knowing.
They do it.
I mean, not a little bit.
Yes.
Why can't we just go Ohio, in every state? So, like, the USAID has really shone a light on everything, and in the last week or so.
Right.
Things people didn't know about. And then they made it even better by opening those press conferences, and letting everybody from all different places ask questions, like you guys. So you could be there and get a place and say, here's what's going on, and let everybody look at this is every state. Everybody's ignoring us, and we don't have a voice except listening if you tune in to you.
Yeah, this thing has grown tremendously. We've talked about really what Ohio needs at the state level and at the local level is a village. I know Lake County has grown tremendously, because I'm always asking for financial statements, 3 years worth of financial statements. And what I found that the Deepwood Center had $65 million in surplus. Lake Metro Parks is $30 million in their surplus. And then I found out Lake Metro Parks got round numbers about $400,000 because of this revaluation. I asked the leader of Metro Parks, I said, why don't you give that back? You've already got $30 million. He said, no, we need every dime to keep the park safe and clean. Well, I asked the commissioners. They got $1.8 million because of this revaluation without a vote of the people. I said, give that back to the people. They didn't vote for it. Their response, no, we've got a $250 million jail that we got to build. So we need every dime we can get. So what happens is they accumulate massive amounts of money. And I said, you cannot continue to suck the lifeblood out of the community. That money needs to be in the hands of the taxpayers so that they can spend it in the community and keep it going. They don't think that way.
But the community doesn't know that. So, like Ellen was saying, the football people, they're just like, oh, we want to win our trophy. The vast majority of people don't know this is happening. Like when I first heard about how much the schools are holding their conference, then I found out so is the health department, and so is every single one of these commissions are keeping all this money that we didn't know about. And once we all find it out, we have to point it out for people to realize how bad it is. So they don't think
well, that was one of the reasons I started Lobbyist for Citizens. I've got no agenda. I'm not running for office. I'm not trying to make money. I just realized there needs to be a platform where promoting honesty, integrity, and transparency in government by exposing the lies, deceptions, and betrayals. I'm the most hated man in Lake County. I really am. They don't like me, Democrats, Republicans, but I'm okay. Yes.
You mentioned the financials, are you talking about the full financials and comprehensive financials, is that what you're looking at?
The financials for what, for the schools?
When you said you were looking at the
Oh, the cover reports, you know, the cover reports, it was generated years ago. There was a rep by the name of Bob Kopp. He said that there should be financial accountability to the people, and that's how they came up with the cover reports. It's an Excel spreadsheet that you can find it on the Ohio Department of Education. You just download it, and you can find out all sorts of information.
What I'm talking about is every corporation, which our government is, everything in our county, you name it, the corporation, has a financial statement. They don't reveal to you, there's no transparency about the assets, liabilities, and capital side of the financial statement. All they tell you is, here's our budget, here's our expenses.
100%.
Give us money.
100%.
And so that's when the people have no idea. And
Yeah, and also there's part of the problem, and I see this in the schools, in the school districts. Yeah, God bless the people that want to be on the school boards, but a lot of them don't have the financial acumen to look at the statements to determine what I say. You got to make the numbers talk, because then what that does, it requires that they depend on the school treasurer to tell them the truth. So that's part of the
Well, that's what I was thinking, if you take your citizens lobby group and everybody does FOIA requests, gets the full financial statements of every organization, corporation in their counties, that would like take it to them and say, we see what you're doing, we know where the money is.
If I can clone myself, I would do this.
Well, no, I mean, you cut it off. Because they have the money,
Yes.
they're lying about it.
I'd like to say, first of all, thanks for doing this. I'm a full-time realtor, and I see things that make my head spin, especially with the elderly in our community. It's heartbreaking. And it's just heartbreaking. There's things I see that just...
We get, Leonard and I get the calls too. We have an 88-year-old lady that said that, you know, we had to take her to the treasurer's office, and he set her up on a payment plan, but we said, that's still not good enough. He thought he was doing a wonderful thing, but...
But there are only so many of you, and time is of the essence.
Right.
So I think that everybody in this room that truly believes in what you're doing, I think needs to adopt the each one, reach one mentality, because people don't know what they don't know, and we've been so trained to be dumbed down, and people stick their head in the sand. It's easier to ignore it than to deal with it and hit it head on, because you've been conditioned to be pigeons, if you will.
Sheep, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not, I never subscribe to that. But if everyone in here develops each one reach one mentality, and the next time you hold one of these events, everyone in this room commits to bring one person. So then your numbers will double. And then if the next event, each one that came to that brings a person, you're going to watch this take off and fly. One thing I would like to say is when you start seeing 200 and 300 unit, and this is not the real we're talking, this is different. When you see 200 and 300 unit sky rises go up where they would never let them be before, you better start panicking.
Oh, yeah.
Is that the contact information that's on the screen here? We can use the stock property taxes that you
Yeah.
get.
Yeah, I've got some business cards that I can hand out, that we can hand out. What you're talking about is love thy neighbor, and we believe in the biblical principles of never bear false witness and love thy neighbor. That's a commandment to us, not a suggestion. And that's what we keep trying to push. So I would love that idea.
Where's the literature? You have some literature you're going to give me.
We have some literature here.
I have some literature on you guys.
What were you?
And he's got some literature. Yes, Jonathan.
All right, so there was some comment about following Brian and Leonard. Shameless plug. Brian and Leonard are on a Sunday evening podcast called Ohio Political News. I'm one of the co-hosts as well. Check Rumble and X. If you want to follow these issues and ones like them, Brian does a spectacular job of researching these and bringing them typically Sunday evenings at 7:30 p.m. to your point about meetings, one of the big pushes that I'm strongly advocating for is hitting younger demographic. And I don't think that we get them to meetings like this. So we do a lot on social media. We're hitting Joe Miller, Brian Massey, Leonard, and I hitting X, Rumble, YouTube, and places like it. The other thing I wanted to interject, if you'll give me here.
Come up and speak. We should have a prize for the youngest person here.
You win every time. No, there's some youngers. You talking about me? No, sometimes I'm the youngest here, but not tonight. So the other thing I was going to say is that Doge Ohio has come up, and I love that. There's a lot of talk about Doge Ohio, but a word of caution. There are some politicians that are trying to commandeer that. And I've heard, I think it was Yost, Dave Yost in Ohio, saying that he wants the Doge Ohio. I caution everybody, don't listen to any career politician that says they want to do the Doge thing. No, it needs to be somebody outside, like a Brian Massey. I volunteer Brian Massey to Doge Ohio. Let's give him a team. But that's just what I wanted to interject. I hope you'll come on Sunday evenings at 7:30 is our typical main broadcast. Find Brian Massey, Leonard, myself, and Joe Miller on Ohio political news.
Yes.
Rumble, X, and sometimes YouTube. Follow these issues, and yes, do bring other people when there are meetings. Follow these guys, but also get younger kids to follow these issues on social media. Thanks.
What is the next step? We walk out the door and what do we need tomorrow? What do we need this weekend? What's the next step?
Just speaking of the next step, this is something I'm going to close with. The constitutional amendment that we're working on, we are putting together some details right now. I actually have to meet with the Secretary of State and the Attorney General to make sure we understand exactly what has to go into it. As far as Brian and I, we're going to continue going around all the different counties, educating people and building that mass that we need. Now, there are other states on board, Pennsylvania, Texas, Michigan. So I have contact in North Dakota. They didn't get theirs passed. But the good thing about that is that was all grassroots effort to actually get that to the ballot. So it tells me this can be done. So the key thing for us is the education piece. And also, as you educate yourself, you educate others. Because that's how the gospel works. That's how I became a Christian. Somebody told me the gospel keeps going out, and before you know it, you may not be able to see it, but we don't go by sight, we go on faith.
Amen.
So once you do that and recognize, we can't get into this notion that, well, we have this amount of time, we have this amount of time. It's not your timetable, it's God's timetable. And he's going to choose to do it the way he wants to do it regardless. Again, our job is not to be successful. Our job is to be obedient. Success is a byproduct of that. So if you're obedient to what you're called to do, God is going to honor his covenant. Amen. But if we don't, like Grandma said, I'm going to spank him. I'm done with spanking. All right. Yes. Oh, you might want to say something for you.
Tommy Lane Cross, I was up here 2 years ago running against Dave Joyce, if you remember me. But we are doing what they did tonight in Portage County. So this is your opportunity. If you know somebody that you think needs to hear this, March 6th, we're going to do this in Portage County. I have some flyers that you can pick up and take with you. There's a QR code on there for our website, Project Promise in Portage. I also have, these are prototypes, these are not perfect, but these are some basic flyers that give the basic overview of the problem and our planned solution. We have to do a constitutional amendment. As you know, if a politician's mouth is moving, they're what? Lying. There was a great turnout in Cuyahoga County for an event similar to this. There were actually 5 state reps there. That's huge. In Portage County, we had one of the illustrious Blue 22. We fired her. We hired somebody else. She came to the Cuyahoga County meeting. She says she's going to be here at the Portage County meeting.
And when I asked her directly about it, she said we have to be careful not to offend the teachers union, we have to go about it the right way. It was all political gobbledygook. She ran on property tax as one of her main platform issues. I believe she can become a champion for us, but she needs to be trained just like you train Pet. So we need to train these people that we are not going to back down and we're not going to go away. Part of this is we also need people in every county. We need groups in every county. I don't need you guys to go to the other 87 counties. I need you guys to go to Geauga County. They're hitting Lake County. There's a group hitting Cuyahoga County. Brian and Leonard were down in Lafayette, which is south of Columbus. We're hitting the counties. And as we start to educate you and you start to educate other people, and we'll be back around, we need to build our grassroots foundations. So there's a two-step process of getting a constitutional amendment on the ballot. First, we have to educate people and tell them why we need it. Okay, this is step one tonight. We're educating you, we're giving you the reason why we have to do this. We have to write the full amendment, we have to write a summary, and we have to get 1,000 signatures. So when we get that part done, we're going to call up Geauga County Tea Party and we're going to be like, we're ready for signatures. When can we meet? Here's your circulator, get us signatures, okay? After we get that 1,000 signatures, we send it to the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General's office looks at it, makes sure it cuts the muster. There's standards in the law. There can only be one issue. If it's a tax issue, it has certain criteria. This is obviously a tax issue, right? We may end up with 2 issues on the ballot. One to say we should have an issue about property tax, and the second is this is the issue about property tax. So it has a little bit higher bar than, say, the marijuana issue. Because if one of those 2 issues fails, the whole thing fails. Okay? Again, this is education. This is base 101. So after we get 1,000 signatures, after we get it to the AG says, yeah, it's good to go, and I am fully confident if we can get it to Yost because he wants to be governor, he's going to make sure we can get it going because he doesn't want to be on the wrong side of the groundswell that this is proving to be nationwide. Okay? He's not going to write it for us. We have to write it. We have to do a good job. We've got some lawyers on board. We're working on it. We're not there yet. After he gets out of there, goes to Secretary of State. He works on ballot language. But we get to go ahead to get not 1,000, 500,000 to 600,000 signatures in at least 44 counties. That's why we need people in every county. That's why we need you in Geauga County talking to Geauga County and telling people what's going on. Now, it's not up yet. It's in here. But I have talked to the group in Cuyahoga County because their website is strictly property tax. Project Promise does property tax, but we also do other things. Lobbyists for Citizens does property tax, but he also covers other things, right? Because Cuyahoga County's website is reformpropertytax.com, they are going to be our go-to, and we want to have representatives from all 88 counties on that website so that you can talk to your Aunt Mildred in Madison County and say, hey, go to this website, Madison County, they'll tell you who to talk to so you can set up an event in Madison County, okay? Or who to connect with. We are trying to coordinate this statewide. We have to coordinate this statewide. This is step 1. So, if you know people that need to hear this, need to know more, invite them. Kent might seem like it's far. I drove up here from Kent just to tell you to come to Kent. March 6th, we've got plenty of time to invite people. We got a room bigger than this. There's plenty of room. If all of you show up, or half of you show up with 1 or 2 people, excellent. We're going to be bringing in people from Summit County, Geauga County, we can get some people from Trumbull County, great. We need to get the message out that we need people in every county. So, that's my spiel. We can do this, but we all have to do it together. We all have to be on the same page. That's the beauty of this here. Basic talking points. I've got some problems with property tax, how to take action, some basic facts on the back. Lots of information in this little brochure.
Where's a website where they can get this information as well?
This information is going to be on Project Promise.
ProjectPromiseForge.com, and we're on social media as well.
Yes. Yeah,
And we create our own videos.
that website's on here, and the QR code for this is on here.
Can you repeat that?
ProjectPromisePortage.com.
Yeah, the videos that we've taken today, they'll be on the Rumble account for Ohio Political News, but also on Lobbyists for Citizens.
Yeah, Lobbyists for
So if
Citizens.
you want to
Yeah.
send that to some of your friends, they'll be able to watch and see what we do.
So if you didn't hear that, it's Lobbyists for Citizens. They have a lot of the videos that Brian's put together. A lot of things like this meeting tonight is on video. They're all on Rumble. If you're not on Rumble, get on Rumble. It's the better version of YouTube, although some people say it's the better version.
What's the one you said, it'll be a Project Promise what?
Portage.
Promise Portage?
ProjectPromisePortage.com. Okay. I think we're done now.
Okay, now I realize, ladies and gentlemen,
No words.
first of all, let's applaud for our main speakers. We're all smart, right? That's what we say. If you come, you'll leave smart. Okay, you leave smarter tonight. I'd like to thank our adjunct speakers as well. Thank you. And realizing also that the mindful